Hello, everybody. Corded buttonholes. You either love them, hate them, or never heard of them before. So that's what I thought we'd talk about this morning on today's edition of Make It Monday. Hi, I'm with Jim with Amy Soes, and I thought we would discuss how to actually do a corded buttonhole. Actually, this came about yesterday. A lady stopped by the shop, and it's one of the nice things about having the film studio attached to the Amy Bachman Sew and Quilt complexes, because quite often, whenever I need to get out of the studio for a bit, I'll venture out into the store and happen to meet a lady that was having a lesson with Lori, and they were discussing corded buttonholes. And I thought, that's a topic we never touched on here. So that's what we're going to do today. So that being said, I'm going to take you over to the machine and we'll get sewing. So I have my machine set up to do a buttonhole, working actually with the Janome M17. And I'm using the automated presser foot, which looks like this. I'll back out a little bit carefully. So this is our automatic presser foot. You actually would just put your button in the back, and you would have your fabric in between the two layers of the presser foot, actually with the stabilizer sheet there, and it'll actually make the buttonhole the size I want. Now, usually whenever you would go ahead and make a buttonhole with a foot like this, you would simply just take it to the machine and you would lower the foot, or actually the ankle to attach the foot. And then you would just take your fabric, slip it between the plates, lower your foot, and of course, lower the wand in the back. That'll help to measure your buttonhole. Now, one of the things that's going to be a little different with a corded buttonhole is we're going to add a 12 weight cord to it. And normally what you would do is you would go ahead and use a color cord that would match your fabric and buttonhole thread. In this case, I'm doing a contrast so we can see it on screen. So this is a 12 weight thread. I can sew with it in my machine, of course, with the correct size needle. But this case, I'm only actually sewing over the cord to reinforce it. This is a great technique if you are working with double weight, double knits, actually like a boucle fabric, any kind of fabric that has a tendency of where the buttonhole may ripple slightly with wear. We've all seen that happen. Now, in order to do that, I need to take a length of the thread and engage it in my foot. And every manufacturer is going to do it a little differently. And with this one, basically what I would do would be I would actually have the thread clip in the back, come around the underside over the front toe, and then back again. And through the magic of television, I have that done right here, where you could see that I'll take the separator plate off for a second there. And you can see that I have that one thread taut between there, because the little clips are holding in place in the back, and I have it fully engaged here, so I'm ready to sew over it. I'll simply put the separator plate back on, back to my machine. I'll lower the ankle so it's attached, and I will, of course, take my fabric, and right now I'm just doing a test sample, which is something you always want to do. So I have my fabric, my interfacing, and another layer of fabric on the back. And I'm just going to slip that in position, that all over the foot. And I'm going to share a little tip with you that I often do with mine. One of the problems I've noticed sometimes with mine, or not really a problem, but a nuisance, is that you get so involved in your sewing and you just start sewing, and you don't think of one simple little thing, which is the fact that these threads really need to be secured when you start to sew. And one way to show what I mean is like this first one, where you see the little thread nest building up, That usually happens when you don't have your needle thread and your bobbin thread secured when you first start to sew. They're just allowed to wiggle around anywhere basically, and they create that little nest that we kind of annoyingly have to clip out. So this is not a machine issue. This is operator error. Sorry to say that. So one of the things I do with it is I always go and bring my bobbin thread up. One of the nice features of the Janome M17 is I have a little thumb wheel right at the front that I can very conveniently turn and bring my thread right on top, like you see there. So I'm just going to pull that out a little bit longer for me. And I'm just going to hold those off to the side. One thing too I want to point out that if you think about it, when you make a buttonhole, if you're getting any kind of tension on your fabric where it's puckering, not laying as smooth as you would like, if you think about it, what is a buttonhole but really embroidery, because we're doing a zigzag or satin stitch. If you have any leftover stabilizer, if you do machine embroidery, you may want to consider saving your scraps and slipping them underneath the backside of your fabrics. And this way, the little extra stabilization will give you an even much more elegant looking buttonhole. Other thing too is I have my machine set at half speed, and I have my foot pedal unplugged because I'm going to rely on the machine itself to do all the stitching. This way, if I was using my foot pedal, a lot of times if you've ever noticed that the density or the balance between the both sides of your buttonholes, if it's not even, quite often the reason for that is that we're using our foot pedal and we're not giving it a consistent speed. If we vary the speed, sometimes it will actually vary the density of your buttonhole, and that's why it doesn't look nice. So now that I have my thread tails and I'm just holding it off to the side, I'm not pulling on the thread, I'm just holding it firmly so it doesn't move. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take a few stitches by the machine. So now I have it in place. I can go ahead and flip the thread tail. Again, I'm making sure I got my wand engaged so I can measure my button. And I'll just let the machine do all the work. And what it's doing right now, as you can see, is it's sewed beside the cord, and now it's capturing the cord in the stitching. It's now sewing again beside the cord, and now it's capturing it in the zigzag stitching or satin stitching. It'll come to the front, and it's going to do that final bar tack and tie the threads in place. Done. I can clip my thread tails. My foot will be automatically lifted for me. Before I even attempt to take the fabric off, I'm going to release the thread from the foot so that I can gently pull it forward and off the machine. And I'll take us over to the overhead now, where we can see our final one all stitched out. And then we just have one little step to do. Now that we have it all secured, I can just go ahead and pull up on those thread cords. And you see how that little loop at the end went right in. And I'll just lay this down on my work surface. I'll take my thread tails. And I like to tie them in a secured knot. You want to pull firmly, but not too tight that you distort the buttonhole. And I like to do 3 just for good measure. And again, if this was a matching thread, it would totally disappear. Now that I got that secured, what I would do before I kind of reach over for my scissors, but I'm not going to do that, because what I would do instead, I would use whatever type of seam sealant that I normally use for my buttonhole. I would apply it to my buttonhole on the front and on that little knot I did. And then I would also turn it over, you ready for this side? The back. And I would apply it to the back side. And notice how nice and neat and clean my back is, because I first started by pulling my thread tails all to the front or top of the fabric I'm working on before I make a buttonhole. And that way it'll give me a nice, clean, smooth, gorgeous looking buttonhole. So then again, once it's secured, I can trim off the thread tail, and I just made a very nice looking corded buttonhole for my garment. And again, if I'm working with a double knit fabric, I put clay, any kind of fabric that's a little loose or kind of stretchy, very biasy, that may ripple when the buttonhole is actually laundered or worn numerous times, it'll prevent that. So you can get a gorgeous looking buttonhole on all of your garments every time when you're doing with that simple trick of just adding a 12-way cord underneath the stitching. Very simple, very easy. Refer to your owner's manual, and it'll tell you specifics on your brand and your foot that comes with the machine. Okay. So again, thanks for watching, and be sure that if you enjoyed the video, tell your friends and share your love of sewing. And again, if you like more information like that, you can always follow us on Amy Sews or Amy Buckman Sewing Quilt.com. Check us out on the website. And of course, it's a shop here. And you can also follow me on my schedule if you go to the sewingexpo.com, where I'm one of the staff educators for the Virtual Sewing Quilt Expo. So we'd love to see you when we go on tour. So that being said, thanks again for watching. And again, remember, the more you know, the more you'll sew. Take care.